At 17, Marcus sat down and wrote out his life. Not a wish list, a plan. By 25, financial independence. By 28, his own business. By 30, settled, stable, someone his younger self would be proud of. Marcus folded the paper and kept it, somewhere safe. Marcus is 31 now, and a few nights ago, he found that paper again. He read through every line, and one by one, most of them hadn't happened, not even close. And something in Marcus just sank. Not because he hadn't tried, he had, but the ages had come and gone, and the life on that paper still felt like someone else's. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've had your own version of that paper, written down or just carried quietly in your head, a picture of where you'd be by now. And maybe, like Marcus, you look at where you actually are, and something doesn't add up. That feeling has a name, and more importantly, it has a source. Here's what nobody told Marcus, or you. That plan he wrote at 17, it didn't come from nowhere. It came from everything around him. His family's expectations, the milestones he watched other people hit, the quiet cultural script that says life should look a certain way by a certain age. Marcus thought those goals were his, but they were borrowed, absorbed so early, so quietly, that they felt like his own voice. The timeline was never his, but the weight of falling behind it, that Marcus carried alone. And that's the invisible part, not the goals, the clock underneath them, the one nobody showed you, but that you've been racing against your whole life. You're not behind in life. You're behind on a schedule that was never written for you. But understanding that is only half of it, because even when you know the clock isn't yours, your brain still won't let you stop watching it. And that's where things get a lot more interesting.
The person you're comparing yourself to, you've never actually met them. Marcus wasn't comparing himself to a friend or a colleague or someone on the internet living a life that looked better than his. He was comparing himself to himself, a version of himself that never existed. The 31-year-old Marcus was supposed to become the one on the paper, the one who had figured it out. Psychologists have a name for this: temporal self-appraisal, the way your brain doesn't just measure who you are, it measures who you are against who you are supposed to be by now. And here's why that's so painful. When you compare yourself to someone else, at least they're real. They have bad days, struggles you can't see, a story that doesn't fit in a highlight reel. But the imagined version of Marcus, that version is perfect. It never failed, never got derailed, never needed more time. It just arrived exactly where it was supposed to be, exactly when it was supposed to. You can't win against a ghost. And yet, that's exactly who most people are fighting every single day. Not their competition, not their past, a fictional future self they built at an age when they had no idea what life would actually ask of them. Think about that for a second. The person making you feel behind doesn't exist, has never existed, and was designed without you knowing to always be one step ahead of you. That's not motivation, that's a trap. But what makes it even harder to escape is what that trap does to you when you've been in it long enough. Because at some point, the feeling of being behind stops being a thought. It becomes something you do. And what it becomes is something most people mistake for commitment. Marcus has been working toward that business for years, not because he still feels the same fire he felt at 17, but because stopping now would mean admitting that all those years, all that effort, went towards something that didn't work out. And that feels unbearable. So he keeps going, not forward, just continuing. There's a difference. Economists call this the sunk cost fallacy, the tendency to keep investing in something, time, money, energy, not because it's still the right choice, but because you've already invested so much that walking away feels like waste. But what happens when the sunk cost isn't just a project, it's your identity? When the thing you can't walk away from is the story you've been telling yourself about who you're supposed to become. That's where it gets heavy. Because now it's not just about a goal, it's about who you are if you let the goal go. Marcus doesn't just feel behind on a plan, he feels like changing the plan means becoming someone who gave up, someone who couldn't follow through, someone his 17-year-old self would be disappointed in. And so he stays, running in a direction he chose when he was a completely different person in a completely different life with no idea what was coming. This is what feeling behind really does to people. It doesn't just make them feel slow, it keeps them loyal to a version of themselves that no longer fits. And the longer they stay loyal, the harder it becomes to move. Which brings us to something most people never see coming. Because when urgency and identity collide, the result isn't action. It's something that looks a lot like laziness, but isn't.
And nobody would call Marcus lazy if they could see what happens inside his head the moment he wakes up. Because the moment he opens his eyes, the list arrives. Everything he should have done by now. Everything still undone. And every single thing on that list feels urgent, immediate, like it all needs to happen right now. And instead of starting, he freezes. People who don't understand this call it laziness. They see someone who feels behind and assume the solution is more pressure, more urgency, more reminders of how much time has already been lost. But more urgency is exactly what's causing the freeze. Here's what's actually happening. When the brain perceives a threat as too large, too urgent, too overwhelming, it doesn't shift into high gear. It shuts down. Psychologists call this threat response paralysis. The nervous system reads the weight of everything at once and decides the only safe move is stillness. It's not weakness, it's biology. And the cruelest irony of feeling behind is that the urgency it creates is the very thing that stops you from catching up. You feel behind, so the pressure builds. The pressure builds, so the task feels impossible. The task feels impossible, so you don't start. And because you don't start, you fall further behind. It's not a motivation problem, it's a pressure problem. Marcus isn't lazy. He's been running on a timeline that was never his, chasing a version of himself that doesn't exist, staying loyal to a path that no longer fits, and carrying all of it every single day alone. Of course he freezes. But here's what Marcus doesn't know yet. None of this is happening in isolation. There's one more layer underneath all of it, and it might be the most invisible one of all. A few weeks ago, Marcus went to a friend's housewarming. He was happy for him, genuinely. He laughed, stayed late, meant every word of congratulations he said. And then he drove home, and somewhere between the parking lot and his front door, something shifted. Nothing in Marcus's life had changed that night. Same apartment, same situation, same everything. But he felt further behind than he had that morning. This is social calendaring, the way humans unconsciously sync their sense of progress to the people around them. When someone in your circle hits a milestone, a promotion, a relationship, a house, a child, your brain doesn't just register their achievement, it updates your own timeline. It reads their arrival as evidence of your delay. It's a herd instinct applied to personal milestones, and it runs completely beneath your awareness, which is what makes it so powerful. Think about the last time you felt suddenly, unexpectedly behind. Was it after a conversation, a scroll, a reunion? Chances are something outside of you moved and your internal clock adjusted to match it. You weren't comparing yourself to your friend. You were letting your friend's life become the new measurement for yours. The feeling of being behind isn't always something you generate. Sometimes it's something you catch. And now, between the invisible timeline, the ghost you're chasing, the identity you can't let go of, the pressure that freezes you, and the world constantly updating your internal clock without your permission, you start to see what Marcus is actually carrying. Not failure, not weakness, not laziness. A weight that was never fully his to begin with.
And that changes everything about what comes next. What changes is the question you've been asking. Most people spend their whole lives trying to catch up. Almost nobody stops to ask what they're actually chasing. The real problem is that you've been measuring a non-linear life on a linear scale. Meaningful lives don't move in straight lines. They detour, they collapse and rebuild. They take 5 years to lay a foundation that nobody sees, and then move faster than anyone expected. The track you've been measuring yourself against doesn't account for any of that. It never did. Catch up to what, exactly? A ghost? A clock nobody set for you? A version of yourself that was perfect precisely because it never had to live your life. You were never behind. You were just on the wrong measuring system. Marcus still has that paper, but the last time he looked at it, he didn't feel the same sinking feeling. He felt something quieter, something closer to curiosity than shame. Not because his life suddenly looked the way he planned, but because he finally understood that the plan was never really the point. The point was always to build something true, not something on time. If you've been carrying that weight, you don't have to put it down all at once. You just have to start by asking whose clock you've actually been running on. That's where it starts. If this video made you think, there's more where that came from. Subscribe if you haven't yet. We go deep on the psychology behind the things most people feel but can never quite explain. And if you want to keep going, the next video is right there. Take care of yourself. Peace.